sparked my interest. So we talk about staff hires on here because, of course, we do. Mississippi State made another one, but one that seemingly surprised you today.
Yeah, and now they've announced the entire staff, so it makes a touch more sense. Although there is there's something I wonder, and we'll get to that in a second. But I've already forgotten the poor guy's name. I know it's Schmidt. Is it Matt?
Mike, not the third baseman for the Cincinnati Reds.
That's right. Yeah, I should have remembered that because it's Mike Schmidt. He was hired from Syracuse as the new offensive line coach. And that sparked some interest from me because I thought, okay, they had hired Will Friend a few weeks back, and I thought he was going to be the offensive line coach. And so State has split up its offensive line duties, in a manner of speaking. Friend is listed as the offensive line coach. Schmidt is listed as the offensive tackle / tight ends coach. He's also the run game coordinator. So is Friend his boss, or is he Friend's boss because he's the run game coordinator? I don't know the answer to that. So, but that being said, State has finalized everything now. Kevin Barbay is the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach. They moved Tony Hughes over to running backs coach from defense. He was on safety. I mean, that guy's coached everything. He can do whatever. Chad Bumpus, as we know, is the wide receivers coach. I mentioned Friend and Schmidt and the way they're splitting up the O-line. David Turner is the new defensive line coach. Everything old is new again. He's been here a couple of times, been a great coach for MSU. Matt Brock coaches the linebackers as well as defensive coordinator. Darcel McBath, still the cornerbacks coach. One of the That's the first one I've listed now. I guess Brock was the linebackers coach a year ago, but they didn't have any new responsibilities. Brett Dewhurst is the new safeties coach. He was an analyst a season ago, and he's been promoted. Eric Melee stays with the special teams. And then a couple of other additions. Well, not additions. Jason Washington's been removed from the on-the-field staff. He is now the new director of player development at Mississippi State. He's a really good recruiter, so we'll have to see what kind of role he has there. And then I thought this was great. As we know, Zach Arnett tied as the all-time winningest coach in Mississippi State history by winning percentage with Greg Knox. Greg Knox has returned to Starkville as a senior offensive analyst. So State has two undefeated head coaches at Mississippi State on their staff at this time. Knox is interesting because he's a running backs coach by trade, right? So what does that tell you? Now that the new rule from the NCAA is out that analysts can be on the field coaching, Knox will probably play a big role in the running backs coaching development portion of the show. And Tony Hughes, whose reputation is that as one of the top recruiters in the South, will probably be a guy who's focusing a lot on the recruiting part of things as well. So that's it. No more staff additions to my knowledge. It's finally done in Starkville.
Yes, text line, thank you. I said Cincinnati Reds. Mike Schmidt played for the Phillies. He retired 3 years before I was born, okay? So at least I knew who the guy was. A Red baseball team up there in the northern region. He's from Ohio. I said Reds. I meant Phillies. My bad. But two offensive line coaches. What an interesting deal. So you've got guards in center coached by one guy and tackles and tight ends coached by another guy.
Well, that's the thing, though. No, because it says Friend is the offensive line coach. So I guess he could get in there with the tackles as well. I'm not really sure how this is going to work. I don't know. Mississippi State did that once before, and it wasn't very successful. It was in the later years of Jackie Sherrill, but they had a guards and center coach and a tackles and tight ends coach. And that's of course in the early 2000s when everybody still ran the I formation and wasn't a whole lot to that. So it's an interesting setup. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work in terms of who does what and who's responsible for what. I do like Will, but Will Friend is an outstanding recruiter. That's what he's made his bones as in his career as a college. This is what this staff is built to do, right? This is State's, on paper, the best recruiting staff I've seen from Mississippi State in quite some time. Hughes, obviously, his reputation. Friend has a great reputation as a recruiter. You've got Bumpus and Turner who have great reputations as recruiters. Barbay was a recruiting coordinator at a previous stop. So this is a staff that's designed to get players. Arnett talked about that in his press conferences. The most important thing is to have players. I think they're really going to focus here in the state of Mississippi on recruiting and then going outside the state for the where they can. But I'm interested to see that because State has never been a school that put the big emphasis on recruiting in the past. We'll see how what changes and see if anything changes. Or are they still recruit at the same level they always have?
I would love to know, and I don't think we would get an honest answer from any coach. how you build a staff in that way, the great recruiters thing, because on one hand, player acquisition is the most important thing. Like we said after the national championship game, if you gave Kirby Smart Wake Forest players, he's not winning the championship. Players are what matter most. I do wonder if they have to consider, like when Zach Arnett's building a staff, does he have to wonder, okay, when we recruit these kids, a lot of them are going to leave now. So do I emphasize, like, how do you pick a staff now? Because multi-year developmental guys are becoming fewer and fewer. So do you focus more on just give me a good recruiter? Because I don't need a great developer because somebody else is going to bear the fruits of that labor. So just get me a guy that's going to get the guys.
And I think you have to trust your coaches to be good developers. And I think that's part of like being a coach, right? Like you don't get to succeed just on the basis of getting players. You know, it's great to get 4- and 5-star players, but if you coach them and they're not good, nobody wants you on your staff. David Turner is a guy. Yeah, he recruited Chris Jones and Jeff Simmons and Fletcher Cox and all those guys, but they also turned out to be better players coming out of college than they were out of high school. They got better under his tutelage. Simmons didn't play for him, but you see what I'm getting at. So I think yes, I have to trust that, but you're kind of right, especially at a school like Mississippi State, an SEC school, where you're going to take some portal guys here and there. So yeah, you know, you can afford to maybe, I wouldn't say, go backwards on development a little bit, but you can afford to focus more on the actual acquisition of talent. Especially when we're talking about recruiting now, we're talking about getting guys out of the portal anyway. You got to be able to get those guys too.
Yeah, you do. Now more than ever.